Jason Giambi over Pedro Martinez. Pedro Martinez in 2000 was on a different planet, not even in the same orbit as the rest of baseball. The guy had a 1.74 ERA, and he led the league in every pitching stat that actually matters. Strikeouts, WHIP, FIP, ERA+, you name it, Pedro owned it. His ERA+ was a comical 291. That's basically 3 times better than the league average. So he didn't just dominate, he embarrassed people. But of course, he didn't win MVP, because that went to Jason Giambi. Now don't get it twisted, Giambi had a great season. His numbers were loud, including 43 homers, a .333 batting average, and a 1.123 OPS. They were loud enough to impress voters who apparently forgot that pitchers still count as players. Voters said Pedro's value didn't show up enough because he pitched every 5 days. But when he did pitch, he erased offenses completely. To be honest, Pedro was the most unstoppable force in baseball that year. But his Red Sox didn't make the playoffs, and Giambi's A's did, so voters handed the trophy to the guy with better PR, not the better player. Juan Gonzalez over Alex Rodriguez. In 1996, Alex Rodriguez had one of the best seasons ever by a shortstop. He hit .358. And to be real, that's not just great, it's absolutely outrageous. Now, toss in 36 homers, 123 RBI, and 215 hits, and you'll understand why this guy is a monster. He played elite defense at one of the hardest positions on the field. His OPS sat at 1.045, and he led the league in runs scored with 141. But did A-Rod win MVP? Of course not. That honor went to Juan Gonzalez, who had 47 homers and 144 RBI. The problem is, that's about where the comparison ends. A-Rod had a higher batting average, better defense, more stolen bases, more hits, and more runs. He did everything. However, Gonzalez played for the division-winning Rangers, while A-Rod's Mariners finished second. That tiny gap in the standings suddenly mattered more than an ocean of difference in individual performance. Unfortunately, voters went with power and playoff standings over all-around greatness. It's one of those snubs where the numbers don't lie. They just got ignored, because in any sane world, A-Rod walks away with that award. But in 1996, the flashier bat and the shinier win-loss record stole the spotlight.
Miguel Tejada over Alex Rodriguez. Hi, Bug.
Now, you may think snubs are rare, but Alex Rodriguez somehow made it look routine because he pops up on our list again. The 2002 MVP race should have been a no-brainer. A-Rod put up 57 homers, 142 RBI, and 393 total bases. He also led the league in slugging percentage, OPS+, and WAR. And going by WAR alone, he was worth over 8 wins by himself. Basically, A-Rod could have taken a nap for a week and still been more productive than half the league. But instead of rewarding him, the MVP went to Miguel Tejada. Habag. But don't get me wrong, Tejada had a solid year. He hit .308 with 34 home runs and 131 RBI. He also played every game that season, which is rare and impressive. But the real reason he got the nod was because his team, the Oakland A's, made the playoffs after rattling off 20 straight wins. Hi, Bug. A great story, no doubt, but MVP shouldn't be about the best storyline. It should be about the best player. So, while Tejada was good, A-Rod was elite. Hi, Bug. Defensively, A-Rod was better, and offensively, he blew Tejada out of the water. But the narrative won again. And once more, A-Rod had to smile politely while watching someone else collect his trophy. Maury Wills over Willie Mays. Hi, Bug. Maury Wills changed the game in 1962 by stealing 104 bases. That number was wild for the time, and honestly, it still holds weight today. But outside of that, his season was pretty average. Hi, Bug. He hit .299, had 6 home runs, drove in just 48 runs, and his OPS was only .720. Meanwhile, on the other side of the National League, Willie Mays was being Willie Mays. The man hit 49 home runs, drove in 141 runs, scored 130 times, and finished with a .999 OPS. He wasn't just hitting bombs, he was hitting everything. And to cap it all off, the Giants actually won the pennant. Hi, Bug. Mays was the engine, the battery, and the tires behind the Giants' machine. In fact, he was the whole car. But surprisingly, the MVP went to Wills, mostly because his stolen bases became a media obsession. Sure, Maury Wills had one historic stat, but Willie Mays had a historic season, and somehow that wasn't enough. So if you want a definition of a snub, this one checks every box. Joe DiMaggio over Ted Williams. The 1941 MVP decision is the ultimate example of why media hype beats math almost every time. Now, Joe DiMaggio's 56-game hitting streak is legendary. There's no denying that. It was magical and it captured America's attention. But Ted Williams batted .406 that same year. I'm not even kidding. Over 4 out of every 10 at-bats ended in a hit. Nobody's done that since. And on top of that, Williams led the league in home runs, on-base percentage, slugging, and an OPS of 1.288. That's not just MVP worthy. That's alien stuff. But of course, DiMaggio played for the Yankees, and they won the pennant, while Williams' Red Sox didn't. Combine that with the fact that Williams wasn't exactly best friends with the media, and the result was obvious. The writers went with the safe pick, the friendly face, and the guy with the famous streak. And by doing so, they ignored the player who actually had the better year in just about every way. It wasn't the first time Ted got robbed, and sadly, it wouldn't be the last. But this one hurt the most because .406 should come with hardware. Instead, it came with regret and a permanent place in the Snub Hall of Fame. This one feels like a slap in the face with a stat sheet. Because Ted Williams didn't just have a good year in 1942. He absolutely wiped the floor with the American League. He won the Triple Crown, and not by some razor-thin margin either. Williams batted .356 with 36 homers and 137 RBIs. But that's just the surface, as he led the league in almost everything a baseball bat could possibly impact. These include runs, OBP, slugging, OPS, walks, total bases, and even extra base hits. The guy basically created his own stat category that year. But unrealistically, voters gave the MVP to Joe Gordon, a Yankee second baseman with 18 homers, a .900 OPS, and what we can generously call solid numbers. But why? Well, Gordon played for the Yankees, who won the pennant. Williams didn't always play nice with the media, and that matters more than you'd think. Writers didn't like Ted's attitude, so they went with the likable guy in pinstripes. It's the kind of snub that makes you question why the award is even called Most Valuable. Because if dominating every offensive stat category doesn't make you the most valuable player, then what exactly does? Boog Powell over Carl Yastrzemski. Boog Powell had a strong year in 1970. He hit 35 homers, drove in 114 runs, and helped lead the Orioles to another AL pennant. He was a crowd favorite, and yeah, he mashed. But let's not get carried away. Because across the stat sheet, Carl Yastrzemski was operating on another level. He hit .329, launched 40 homers, and crossed the plate 125 times. He had a higher OBP, a higher slugging percentage, more hits, more runs, and played better defense in a tougher position. But Yaz played for the Red Sox, who weren't winning anything that year, and voters apparently decided winning mattered more than individual dominance. Once again, the MVP vote turned into a popularity contest with a team record twist. Powell was the more likable big guy on the better team, so he got the nod. Yaz just had the misfortune of being better on paper, but not in narrative. I mean, this guy carried a weaker team on his back, and still got ignored. So what exactly does that say about the credibility of the MVP award? Not much, if you ask me. Swamp Bell over Alan Trammell. Now this one just screams injustice with every stat you look at, because George Bell had an undeniably loud season in 1987. He hit 47 homers and drove in 134 runs. That'll get attention fast, especially in the pre-analytics era when raw power was all the rage. But Alan Trammell? That guy put on a clinic. He hit .343, stole 21 bases, got on base more often, struck out less, and walked more. And he did all this while playing shortstop, not left field. Defense counts too. Bell was below average in the outfield while Trammell handled one of the hardest positions in the game. Oh, and Trammell's team actually won the division, while Bell's Blue Jays finished second after collapsing in the final week. So why did Bell win MVP? Well, I guess home runs and RBIs hypnotized the voters, and Trammell's consistency wasn't sexy enough. It's the same old shiny object problem. Bell had very loud numbers in two very flashy categories, and that caused voters to ignore the full picture. Trammell should have walked away with that award, but instead he got a polite nod and a pat on the back. Talk about a masterclass in getting snubbed.
Barry Larkin over Dante Bichette.
Now, this one's messy, because the voters didn't just lie, they blatantly turned a blind eye to the facts of what an MVP should be. So, Barry Larkin won the MVP in 1995, right? He hit 15 home runs, drove in 66 runs, and had a nice .86 OPS. That's very solid. But now, take a look at Dante Bichette in the same year of 1995. Bichette mashed 40 homers, drove in 128 runs, hit .340, and had a .984 OPS. And he did it while leading a young Rockies team to the playoffs in just their third year of existence. Sure, his defense wasn't the best, and he only walked 22 times, which is kind of hilarious. Other than that, the man absolutely smashed that season. Sure, Larkin was great in 1995, but he wasn't MVP-level great, because that year's award should have gone to Dante Bichette instead. Now, the most recent snub is also the hardest to process, because Shohei Ohtani didn't just have a good year in 2022, he basically lived 2 full careers at once. On the mound, he went 15-9 with a 2.33 ERA and struck out 219 batters in 166 innings. And at the plate, he hit 34 homers, drove in 95 runs, and put up an OPS near 900. That's not just impressive, that's freak of nature stuff. Yet somehow, the MVP went to Aaron Judge, who, to his credit, crushed 62 home runs and set the American League single-season record. Judge had an incredible year, no doubt. He led the league in most offensive stats and dragged the Yankees to the playoffs. But Ohtani did things we hadn't seen since Babe Ruth. And if we're going to be honest, Ohtani actually did them better. So why didn't he win? Well, voters got swept up in the record. 62 homers is the kind of thing that makes headlines, breaks the internet, and sells jerseys. But if you're talking pure value, Ohtani was literally doing the work of 2 players at an elite level. That kind of production is once-in-a-century stuff, and he still didn't get the trophy. That's one major snub that'll sting for a long time. But which of these do you think is the biggest snub in MVP history? Tell us in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more baseball action.